All right, our first segment today, Ricky Gervais, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. Apparently he is a very popular comedian out there in the world, international comedian. I had not heard of him prior to this clip, but, you know, I lead a pretty sheltered life.
I hadn't heard of him prior to you saying it, so this is going to be interesting.
All right. Well, Ricky Gervais is an atheist, and he was on CNN recently.
Well, he pretends to be an atheist.
Talking about his faith in atheism. So let's take a look at this clip.
If you're a believer in God, if you're a Christian, as many tens of millions in America are, you could see you as poking fun at their religion.
Not at all. When someone thanks God, I don't get offended. How many people thank God every time they say thank God? I don't get offended. Do I?
But you must be aware that a lot of people in America would potentially find that offensive.
What? Because I'm saying I don't believe in God?
Yeah, because you're kind of mocking them, you know.
No, I'm not. I'm not mocking them. People's beliefs aren't my concern at all. I certainly don't differentiate between religions either. I look at all religions the same. Unlike religious people, I look at all religions equally.
You were religious till you were about 8 years old, is that right?
Yeah, I was brought up a Christian. Yeah.
And what happened to change your mind then?
I used to go to Sunday school all the time. I believed in... Well, you've got to realise that when you're a working class kid, I came from a very poor working class background. My dad was a labourer, my mum was a housewife. I lived in a poor estate, over here, like the projects, right? And to a working class mum who, her hope isn't that you become a doctor or a lawyer or an international comedian. It's that you don't die in a barroom fight. And they think the best way to do that is to take on Christian values, which preach immorality, but they haven't got the monopoly on good. This is my point. I'm not a Christian, but I live my life in a good way. And some people say, well, who says what's good is? Well, do you know what? I do. I'm good to people because it's the way I want to be treated. And I don't believe I'll be rewarded in heaven, but I do believe...
What do you think will happen to you?
I'll be rewarded now.
But when you die, what do you think happens?
People who liked me or remember me.
But what happens to you? Anything?
What, my physical body?
Yeah.
It breaks down or
Your
gets
spirit?
burnt.
Anything happen to that?
I don't believe there is a spirit. I think the spirit is an upshot of all your inputs, your beliefs. Some people think you can't believe in love if you're an atheist. Of course I believe in love. Of course I believe in the beauty of nature. I just believe that the earth was made over 4.5 billion years and not by design in 6 days. And, I wasn't being disrespectful, but I think I have the right to say I'm not a believer in God, just like everyone has the right to believe in God. And spirituality is very different to religion, let's not forget that.
Are you a spiritual person, do you think?
Well, not in that sense. But I get a funny feeling when I see a friend or a mountain or an animal. It fills me with joy. My first love is science and nature.
All right, so Ray, Ricky Gervais, professed atheist. Did he break any atheist rules in that interview?
No, he just seemed like a nice chap, and he brought up the same nice arguments that every nice person makes, that they think they're good people. And he's English, and I presume he was brought up as an Anglican. Did he say that?
He didn't say. He said he was brought up in a Christian home.
In a Christian home. In England?
In England.
Yeah, often the English church is different than the American church. I come from New Zealand, so it's kind of similar, but church in England is often a great big cold brick building or rock building with a man in a kind of a 90 up the front, flicking water at people, very almost like Catholic. Very old congregation, elderly people, graveyards around the church, which is kind of saying what's going on inside it, and it's incredibly boring. The minister speaks in a monotone voice, and kids that are subjected to that sort of Sunday school grow up with a skewed understanding of what a Christian is and what Christianity is. So I kind of don't blame them for turning away from it once they come to their senses and become teenagers and see there's a world out there, because they haven't got anything to stand on because the gospel hasn't been preached to them.
Chad, what are your thoughts on that video?
If I was in a conversation on the street with Ricky, I'd like to point out maybe a couple of things to him. One, I'd like to point out this that Christianity has a monopoly on goodness. This position is actually sort of a misnomer. No Christian's running around saying, we've got the monopoly on goodness.
And they think the best way to do that is to take on Christian values, which preach immorality, but they haven't got the monopoly on good. This is my point. I'm not a Christian, but I live my life in a good way. And some people say, well, who says what's good is? Well, do you know what? I do. I'm good to people because it's the way I want to be treated.
Really, to identify with a Christian, it would be to say that Christians are the only ones that have accountability or justification for goodness, for an absolute morality.
This is my point. I'm not a Christian, but I live my life in a good way. And some people say, well, who says what's good is? Well, do you know what? I do. I'm good to people because it's the way I want to be treated.
In fact, I think we have a morality slide here that can point this out. And this has been said before. Ravi Zacharias, he says that in order for someone to assume there's such a thing as good, he must assume there's such a thing as evil. In order for you to differentiate between good and evil, you're going to need that moral law that you see on the left side there, a point of reference.
And some people say, well, who says what's good is? Well, do you know what? I do. I'm good to people because it's the way I want to be treated.
But in order for that moral law to be good, to be real, to be concrete, to be absolute, you need a moral law giver, which is God. But in Ricky's world, Ricky's living on the right side, where there is no moral lawgiver, there is no God, and therefore there's no moral law, there's no point of reference that's absolute or concrete.
I'm good to people because it's the way I want to be treated.
Which leaves you with a world just full of autonomy. Everyone is a law unto themselves. So there really is no such thing as good, there's really no such thing as evil. All things become equal.
I certainly don't differentiate between religions either. I look at all religions the same. Unlike religious people, I look at all religions equally.
Because if there is no God, life ultimately is absurd. It's a cosmic accident that coughed us up, us human beings, and the same cosmic accident that coughed us up will swallow us up as well. It doesn't matter how you live your life.
I'm good to people because it's the way I want to be treated.
And don't just take it from me. I've brought this fellow up before, Michael Roos. We have a quote by Michael Roos, who's an atheist philosopher. He says, the position of the modern evolutionist is that humans have an awareness of morality because such an awareness is of biological worth. Morality is a biological adaptation no less than our hands and feet and teeth. Considered as a rationally justifiable set of claims about objective something, ethics is illusory.
I'm good to people because it's the way I want to be treated.
I appreciate that when somebody says, love thy neighbor as thyself, they think that they are referring above and beyond themselves. Nevertheless, such reference is truly without foundation. Morality is just an aid to survival and reproduction, and any deeper meaning is illusory. Now, Michael Roos, this atheistic philosopher, would actually point out to Ricky that loving your neighbor as yourself on atheism is just illusory. There's nothing really good about it. So, if I was with Ricky, I'd like to point out that, this is inconsistency. He's double dipping. If he wants to assert there's goodness in the universe, he has to posit the moral law. That Christianity has a monopoly on goodness, this position is actually sort of a misnomer. No Christian's running around saying, we've got the monopoly on goodness. If he wants to assert there's goodness in the universe, he has to posit the moral lawgiver.
I'm good to people because it's the way I want to be treated. But they haven't got the monopoly on good. This is my point.
You can't just oust him out of the paradigm.
Good point. Well
Right.
said.
And no one likes a double dipper. Hey, how come we don't get nice little diagrams like he's got way over there in the whatever it is?
I'll talk to him after the show,
Good.
sir.
Yeah, we would like some diagrams.
Okay.
But I think it was
We have to have
interesting.
something to diagram, though.
Yeah, well, I could diagram this.
Okay.
The gentleman, what's his name?
Ricky Gervais.
Ricky said he didn't want to be rewarded with heaven, which shows his understanding of what the Christian gospel is skewed. He just doesn't understand that we're not being good to be rewarded with heaven. We are good because we have been rewarded with heaven.
And I don't believe I'll be rewarded in heaven, but I do believe
What do you think will happen to you?
I'll be rewarded now.
Our sins are forgiven. So why do I live a virtuous life, so-called? It's because I'm thankful, grateful to God for dismissing my case. So I would point that out to him too, that salvation isn't something that's to be earned. It's a free gift of God.
And I don't believe I'll be rewarded in heaven, but I do
What do you think will happen to you?
I'll be rewarded now.
So there.